Hey everybody, I'm Kevin Coleman, Executive Director for Bellingham SeaFeast, and today we have another KISS episode, Keep It Simple Seafood. Today we have Jennifer Worthley from It's the Sweet Things over on Cornwall, and you've been in business for 5 years now?
5 years, yes. And 2 years in the brick and mortar.
Nice, okay. And tell me what we're gonna be making today.
We're gonna do a smoked salmon seafood pastry. So it's kind of like a savory meal that you would imagine, but we're gonna wrap it all up in a little pastry, and it's gonna be amazing, hot and fresh out of the oven.
Delicious. And for those of you who might want to know how to get this, Jennifer is actually at Dockside Market the first and third Saturday of every month, and she actually sells these. But today she's going to teach us how to make them, and I'm very, very excited. So, Jennifer, go to town.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
So the first thing that we're gonna do, we've got some store-bought puff pastry to keep it simple for everyone. So we can pick these up at most places, and it'll come frozen. So we'll take it out of the packaging and let it sit for a little bit to get up to a temperature that we can work with while we get the rest of our stuff going. Got some green onions here. I've already rinsed these off, so they're ready to go. Just kind of chop them up. First time that I vended at SeaFeast, I was trying to think of some sort of pastry that would feature seafood. I love to pick up our smoked salmon from Lummi Seafood Market. It's pretty amazing. This is their smoked king salmon. The next step, to kind of peel off bottom layer of skin and then get it into littler pieces in a separate bowl. Check for bones. They're usually pretty good about no bones in here, which is nice. You can smell it so fresh. There aren't a lot of things that actually even go into this. But because each component is very flavorful and tasty, it all comes together really nicely. So the smoked salmon is the first one that we ever thought of, and that was like the original SeaFeast pastry. And then since then, we've come up with some other fun things. It's always great to work with the local fishermen. We do most of our work with Lummi Seafood, but also have some inspiration from other vendors that we come into contact with. So we've since come up with like a shrimp pesto parmesan. It's very similar to this. What's great about this pastry is that you can kind of swap out the insides with whatever sounds good, and it all turns out the same way. Sometimes there'll be firmer bits. We kind of want to leave those out because we're going to also bake it. So we're thinking about like the texture as we're putting these together. We're shooting for about 8 pastries. So over here. And then 8 ounces of cream cheese. You can do anywhere between half an ounce to an ounce per pastry. It's kind of a good barometer when thinking about how much to grab. Room temperature so that it mixes up nicely. I'm just gonna kind of put it in our stand mixer. Throw some green onion in there. This is not an exact science. This is very much to taste, smell, what looks like and tastes like good for your own palate. Do this, get that going. Fresh dill is always preferred. Dried dill will work. You just use a little bit more of it. And again, it just depends on like the fragrant level of what you're working with and what smells, tastes, looks, sounds good to you, because it is gonna be your own creation. Try and get the thick stems off and just get the little wispies in there. This is not very fancy. It's just a seasoned pepper medley blend. Picked up at the cash and carry. But it's got a really nice round sort of composition of like different peppers and a little bit of salt in there, so it tends to work really well with this. One thing about this cream cheese part is that we do want to pack it with flavor, because the proportion of it to everything else, it's got to shine through. So we want to make sure we get a lot of like herbs and seasoning in here, so that when we put it all together and you bite into it, you can still taste all the stuff that's in here. More. just the littlest bit. So this is Johnny's seasoning salt. If you're doing a crab version, Old Bay works really well as well. Go a little bit lighter on this because I also sprinkle it on top a little bit before we bake, which we'll do a little bit later. And this, a little bit more. Also totally optional. Gives it a nice little kick. But if spiciness isn't your thing, you can leave it out and it will still be absolutely amazing. It's just the littlest bit. Smelling it. You can grab a spoon and taste it too. I just find it's like easier to smell the fragrance. But the first few times that I made it, I definitely dipped a spoon in there just to be sure. I think we can do a little bit more dill. Leaving the mixer going while it's beating is also super helpful to help with all the aroma of fragrances of everything that we're putting in there. Get in there. Okay. I think that part is looking pretty good. And then this, still a little cool to the touch, not completely warmed up because when it gets too soft, it's almost more difficult to work with. Pizza cutter, pastry cutter, whatever kind of fancy tool that you have, that's a wheel, that slices. And then with these, it looks like we'll cut them into fourths. Just about right. These are a little bit smaller than the ones that we sell at market, but the same concept. You'll end up with a square. Set these off to the side for a second. And when it's all said and done, them being exactly even isn't super important either. Okay. Make a little stack. Let's see. Artichoke hearts. These ones are quartered. Some oil is okay. You don't want to get all the oil in there because it'll make it really wet. But it is nice to have some of it because the flavor transfers over with all the herbs that are in there. This is another thing too, the artichoke hearts, just like the smoked salmon, just like the sun-dried tomato. The more quality that you start with, the better it's gonna be. We're using just kind of standard, sort of mid-grade, nothing too fancy, but if you were to go even fancier on your sun-dried tomatoes or artichoke hearts with more robust flavor, it's gonna translate through the whole pastry. We'll just kind of get them small enough so that when they get stacked on top of the other things, because it'll go cream cheese, salmon, artichoke, sun-dried tomato. So we want them to be able to sit on top of everything without rolling out, but also be big enough so that when we bite into them, we know that they're there. We'll start laying these out. Put this down. Pop it out of here. Get all the goods. The fresh dill likes to get caught in the paddle, so it's always good to scrape it out really well up here, because sometimes you'll lose half of the good stuff. Scrape it down. If you have a little like scooper, like a little cookie dough scooper, basically a mini version of an ice cream, that works great. You can also just use a teaspoon or soup spoon or any kind of spoon that you've got hanging around. And it's not a whole lot in here. Just kind of divide it up evenly. Here we go. And the flour on the pastry should help it stick and not just slide around too. Everything in the center. I'm gonna build a little. I'm gonna grab our salmon. A nice little clump. What's great about Lummi Seafood is it's so moist. It's just delicious. So just get that in here. Do another little pile. And what's nice is everything grabs itself. So as you're stacking stuff up, it's good to keep it in the middle so that when we go to fold up our pastry, it's an easier job for us. But doing it in this order helps everything stick together as well. And as you can already see, sort of the smaller the pieces are, the more helpful you make it for yourself. Okay. And the salmon really is the star of the show. The other stuff, just a little bit of an extra flavor pop, but not too overwhelming. I'll do a little bit of these. If the marinade from the artichoke drips down into the salmon, it's good. It all works together. And then just a little. One thing about the sun-dried tomatoes too is also the ones that are marinated, as opposed to you can get them dry in pouches, or they're not necessarily dehydrated, but they're not sitting in the marinade, and it doesn't have quite the same outcome. Now that we've got our little piles all going, we're just gonna crack an egg, very simple egg wash. You can whisk it if you want. I just use the pastry brush to kind of mix it up. And then this top right corner is where we want to focus this. Just kind of get it not too heavy, because if there's too much on there, it'll actually be more difficult and work against you when you go to close it up. But just a little bit will help seal it all together. And then we'll start with the two sides that don't have the egg wash. Bring it into the middle and pinch them together. And they should hold if it's at a good temperature. And then bring this one around. And then take the egg wash, is going to be our very last step. Bring it all the way back over and get underneath here and press it all the way down. Want to make sure that we get this little one pretty pressed together, as that'll keep it from opening up while it's baking. And if it's a rectangle, if it's a square, however the shape comes out, it's going to taste and still actually even look amazing when it's done, so it doesn't matter so much. Hold it. It has some stretch to it too. You'll notice when it starts to warm up a little bit. It's very pliable. It'll let you do what you need to do with it. So it's good to not be too concerned with messing it up. It's pretty user-friendly. And then as we're wrapping it up, we're thinking about keeping all of our yummy stuff that we just put in there as protected as possible, so that when it bakes, the pastry sort of protects it from the oven a little bit, because it'll keep everything in there from getting like weirdly baked or dried out or any of that. That can happen if the oven was just blasting on it. There we go. I always like to set everything up on the tray, thinking about the future. So if you have limited space in your fridge, you can put everything kind of closer together on one, and then separate it later, or you can set it up with some space, because they are, like the name would suggest, gonna puff out when they bake up. And we're gonna set those in the fridge overnight, ideally. You could probably do a couple hours, and they would still be good. You just wanna make sure that everything gets cold again. And then hang on to this, because we're gonna use it again right before we bake. All right. Now we pulled these back out of the fridge after they've chilled overnight. Pastry should be nice and cool. And then either way works also too, these mats. So these silicone mats are amazing. They really distribute heat evenly, offer a layer of protection. Parchment paper works as well, but you want to have something in between the baking sheet and your pastry. So I'm going to get our egg wash again and kind of tap it so that it's not super wet going on there. Give it a little brush, and you'll see the egg wash cover because you'll see the flour kind of no longer be there. And again, a little glisten, but not sopping. You can usually get a couple of them going. Do a little bit more. Repeat that. This. And this is really nice here, how that's almost looks like one dough. We can't even tell that you brought it together. That one's gonna stay nice and tight while it bakes. And the purpose of this egg wash is that it's just gonna give it a nice golden brown. So if it's not all over everything, it's not gonna be a problem with your final result. It's just kind of a visual appeal and a little added layer of crunch. Get that going. We're gonna pull out our seasoning salt again, the sprinkle top on. Just do a little, not too crazy, just a little added flavor here. Then we've got Italian seasoning, and this is literally just the generic Italian seasoning. You can use any combination of like thyme, rosemary, just kind of gives it a nice pop of flavor. It's something you might not normally think of with seafood, but it works. There we go. You can see it's not too crazy, but just a little extra on top of there. And then we're ready to go. Put this in. 400 degrees. If you have a convection oven and not a conventional, even better with the pastry. So sometimes convection ovens can be a little harsh. Either way will work with this recipe. We're gonna set our timer to just check it in about 20 minutes. It might bake a little longer than that. We're just gonna keep our eye on it. A lot of that, okay, it's going. A lot of that will depend too on how cold your sheet tray is, how cold your pastry is, just kind of what's going on when you get it back in the oven will vary your bake time a little bit. So when we're about halfway there, I'm gonna pull it out. Ooh, nice oven. You'll see it's starting to get a little bit of color there, kind of puffing up. But mostly we want a real nice even bake on everything. So we're gonna pull, rotate. We're gonna change shelves and flip it around. Close it back up for another little while there. Coming along nicely though.
Hey, we're back here, and these things smell delicious. They smell amazing. They look amazing. And I'm really looking forward to you bringing them out.
I think they're ready. They've been about 26 minutes. They're looking. Let's see, let's check it out here.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
They got a nice dark color, but not too dark.
Yeah, these look incredible. Absolutely incredible.
All right.
Set that one there. Get the second tray out. Boom. And then we'll let these cool down a little bit, right?
Yeah, you wouldn't want to bite into one right now. I know it's tempting.
It's very tempting.
Oh, but that would ruin
these
it.
look absolutely incredible. So I'm very, very excited to get these plated up and to try one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes. And then it looks like everything is nice and protected.
Yeah.
Nothing spilled out. Nothing crazy happened.
No. The dough worked
Looking
great.
good. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm impressed.
I'm impressed.
Pepperidge Farm.
Nice. Way to go. Yeah, this is absolutely yummy. Okay, here we are. We're back with a fully plated plate of delicious salmon pastries. And I'm going to try one now.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that they're. I think you'll be all right.
Oh, they're so fluffy. And taste. Hold on. I'm just going to taste it this way.
Is it hot?
It's delicious.
Okay.
Oh my God. It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It didn't burn you?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. Oh. Okay, people. I'm just going to tell you, this right out of the oven, there's nothing like this. I'm telling you, there's nothing like this straight out of the oven. It is flaky. It is tasty. It is savory. It has all the little buttons that tickle on your taste buds. It's delicious.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely delicious. And you made it easy to learn how to do.
Exactly. You can make it at home.
Which is the
We
entire
took
idea.
out, right?
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, I really appreciate you being here today. This has been really awesome.
Me too. Thank you.
My pleasure. And you know what? You've been watching another episode of KISS. I want to thank the Port of Bellingham, as well as BECU, and Alaska Gold Seafood, as well as the wonderful Community Food Co-op for allowing us to do this and bring this to you each and every month. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of our KISS program. And thank you, Jennifer, once again for being part of KISS.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next time.